Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share my full review, the digitally digested segment, for the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 2014 edition. So as you may have noticed through the course of my coverage of this tablet, I am a really big fan of what Samsung has put together in this second generation Note 10.1. They pretty much corrected, upgraded, and improved upon the original in just about every possible way, and through the course of my coverage, I focused on all of these details, small and large alike, because Samsung has gone out of their way to make sure that everyone out there knows that you're going to pay a premium for this product, but in turn you're going to get one of the best devices out there. So as you may have noticed right now, I've got the Samsung branded, designed book cover case on the Galaxy Note 10.1 2014 right now, and in my opinion this is the must-have accessory for this tablet because it's a perfect fit and match to the device itself. As you may have noticed from my previous videos, one of the biggest draws among the hardware specification, all the things that would generally draw you towards a device like this, is the actual profile and form factor, quite frankly. I mean, you've got one of the lightest 10.1-inch tablets on the market. People will argue that the iPad Air is thinner and lighter, but will often neglect to point out the fact that this tablet has a larger display that's higher resolution, much better stereo speakers, an integrated S Pen experience, which is based around a Wacom digitizer, best in class, essentially, mobile OS pen input. Nothing else on the market touches it. And in terms of processing power, this is one of the most powerful packages in the entire mobile sector right now, whether we're talking about handsets or tablets, since pretty much they do share the exact same components. So this is a beast without question. In terms of pricing, for those of you that again have missed my previous coverage, we're looking at a 32 gigabyte version of this Wi-Fi tablet in black, priced at $599.99. With the holidays going on right now, Black Friday, all of these sales, some softness in pricing, but still not a lot, and you shouldn't expect a whole lot when it comes to Samsung products because, after all, they do try to keep firm pricing throughout the entire lifespan of the product, and that's why the last-gen Note 10.1 is still holding pretty strong, way above and beyond other competing Android tablets with the same age. But pricing aside, for the $600 32 gig option, you can also go with the 16 gig option for $549.99. I'll include links in the description for both, and promotions will vary. Do expect pricing to go down. This has been out for a little over a month now, but it's still fairly new, and in my opinion, as you'll see through the course of this review, the best tablet money can buy right now if you're looking for a mobile OS driven experience, especially one complemented by a pen stylus input. So I've already stated I really enjoy the book cover case. That's because it gives you, as I showed all of you going around the profile of the device, relatively decent protection. It doesn't give complete protection on the side, but you know, it does reinforce that back shell. It is the exact same fit and finish as the actual back of the device, which you'll see when I take the tablet out of the case. So despite not protecting everything, it still gives you access to all of the applicable ports. It also has rubber feet in order to support when you're actually using it as a kickstand, because remember, this book cover case not only protects the device, but also acts as a kickstand in a productivity as well as a traditional stand mode. And then also, beyond that, the fit finish that I've been mentioning, you also have a wake and sleep function. As you may have noticed, as I open the tablet, we're greeted by the home screen you would get on first boot. And even though I've spent a lot of time with this tablet, put it through just about every pace any user could possibly want to, we're now starting stock. And this is something I tend to do on my full reviews because I want all of you to see what this device is going to operate like out of the box, because that's how you're going to actually experience it. So we're looking right now, as I'm almost losing it, a relatively dim 2560 by 1600 resolution display, which I will remind you is pretty much the new standard for mobile devices in this size range. So when we're thinking 10.1-inch displays, 2560 by 1600 is starting to become standard, at least at the top tier. That's without a doubt. 1080p we've seen adopted starting last year, but now we're seeing screens like this. And while it may look relatively soft right now, wait until I actually connect. Now, we do have dual band Wi-Fi, something those of you interested in utilizing your AC connectivity like myself will be very pleased with. Just entering my Wi-Fi password, and this is exactly what you would have to do if you were booting up the device for the first time. Bring back the tablet. And we're connected. Going to just jump through setting the date and time, accept the agreement to sign everything over to Samsung. I'll even participate, at least in their tracking for today's demonstration. By the way, something to notice right here while we're on this black screen, which speaks to the build quality of this expensive Wi-Fi tablet. Again, reminding you 16 and 32 gigs of internal storage, but you do have a micro SD card slot for storage expansion. I'm going to continue to go through all of the specifications throughout the course of this video. But let's take a look at the screen closely. And I'm doing this because I want to point out that this screen is pretty much free of defects. In all of the units I've seen, both my own as well as associates, no dead pixels, no backlight bleed. Now, I'm not saying the brand is impervious to defects. Every product, no matter who makes them, no matter how high their quality of standard is, you're going to run into a certain number of defective units, a failure rate. So just something I wanted to show. And let's go ahead and pass through this. Not really interested in any of this setup information. And skipping Dropbox, that comes included. Part of the big appeal with the Note 10.1 is that Samsung is clearly letting you know this is a media consumption device, and they want you to be aware of the fact that they want you to actually utilize it as such. So they're including all sorts of perks, as they've dubbed them, which I also did a video on. You can take a look at the channel and pull that up if you like, if you want specifics on it. Not going to get into it now. And basically those perks include like Play Store credit, Samsung Hub credit, which is their own store for movie rental, content rental, and purchase. They also give you subscriptions to New York Times, Hulu, a whole host of different content providers, of course with the intent of actually getting you hooked on getting all of your data from the Galaxy Note 10.1 2014. And it is a good approach, in my opinion, especially considering Samsung is one of the few in the business, unlike Sony, Google. Well, Google's made a much larger impact, Apple, that really doesn't have the tie-in to their own application store to leverage, even though, of course, this is an Android device running Jelly Bean 4.3. Still, nonetheless, the point is that Samsung does not own movie rights like Sony does to market their own services. So outside of having the Play Store on here, they really have tried to carve out a brand for themselves. In my opinion, the Hub, really not a success so far, but they're giving you $50 to spend there. No one's going to say no to it, so it's not bad. Now, I want to point out the hand holding you're looking at right here, which is that you can see flick upwards from the bottom of the screen in order to open the My Magazine feature. Now, this is part of Flipboard, designed specifically for Samsung. Samsung really likes, obviously, what Flipboard has to offer, and that's why we're seeing an actual application that you can customize. And I've covered this in a previous video. It'll basically pull together information that's centric to you based on your habits, search, you know, all of the stuff that you basically give it access to, social media, your location, and it'll give you basically information associated with things that it thinks you might be interested in. Not going to go through this now, but I would have to agree to all the policies. But it's fairly simple in terms of what it has to offer. Essentially, you're going to just be swiping through the Flipboard in order to get all of that different content in what is a pretty looking environment, but not necessarily a very functional one, because most of the comments about lag associated with this tablet have to do with that Flipboard experience. So if you ditch that entirely, forget about it, I think you're going to be very happy with what you have here. But let's get rid of the hand holding. As you can see, Smart Stay Connect just came up saying it can't detect my eyes. That's another feature, much like the Galaxy lineup of phones, especially now the Note 3 as well, which is what this really is, just a 10.1-inch version of, except it is missing some features and does not share identical hardware. The Note 3 has a Snapdragon 800 quad-core processor. Here we are dealing with Samsung's own Exynos 5, which is an A15 chip, very high performer, right up there with the 800, as well as the Tegra 4. Those are really the best three mobile processors in the market. They burn everything else that at least tries to compete with them. And you also have actually a secondary quad-core chip in here, so there is an Octa environment, two quad-core chips, and that second is an A7, so a older architecture really focused on slower, or I should say lower end, lower power tasks in order to manage battery life, because you do have a tremendous battery in here. Yields roughly around 8 hours of power use, maybe a little bit more if you really take down screen brightness. You saw I just pulled it up and really took it to the top because I really want to highlight the gorgeous 2560 by 1600 resolution display here because it is best in class. Now, part of the overlay that you've seen here so far is Touchwiz Ui, and if you're not familiar with it, it is in large part what gets credit for creating the lag that this tablet has unfortunately become associated with. And I can tell you it's not because of the hardware, because I didn't mention all of the specifications, but I just spoke clearly about the quad-core processor in here being top tier, but you've also got 3 gigs of RAM, which is more than any mobile OS-based tablet on the market. You also have, as I mentioned, 16 or 32 gigs of storage, a front-facing 2-megapixel cam, a 8-megapixel rear cam with LED flash, which both are beyond competent when it comes to tablet performance. The screen, as I mentioned, really is the new standard, in my opinion, for any tablet, especially 10.1-inch form factor. At best, the iPad Air, superior to the Nexus 10, because even though it matches the same resolution and is coming from the same manufacturer, you are actually looking at a superior display in terms of color accuracy, vibrancy, viewing angles, just about everything you could possibly want to see out of a display. Speaking of the display, this entire overlay again is that Touchwiz user interface that runs atop Android. You can kind of push this aside without rooting and ROMing this device by just putting something like Nova Launcher on. That's another demo that I did in the past. But in terms of display options, you can see brightness, the screen timeout, which I'm going to change right now for the purpose of this video, the touch key light duration. These are all things that will, basically equate to different battery performance. At least that's the idea, beyond just personal preference. The screen mode, you can just actually select the environment you prefer. The adaptive display really tries to literally adapt to whatever you're doing, whether it's reading, watching a movie, browsing the web. It'll give you different performance, but you can just stick with something standard or movie. You'll actually get a difference in the display. In my opinion, the adaptive display has worked perfectly well. No reason to really play with that. Reading mode enabled and enhanced for applications that can actually take advantage of that, specifically e-reading, which is fairly obvious. This is something that Samsung's been doing for a while, and now we're seeing it incorporated into a lot of other tablets. Daydream, just a screensaver. The battery percentage, this is something all tablet manufacturers should be doing but aren't. So please, memo to everyone else in the business, follow Samsung here. Start giving us the percentage or giving us the option. We shouldn't have to install a third-party app. This is old news. But Samsung, kudos for doing this, but it's nothing new. This is something they've been doing for a while. Part of the polish, I hate to even call that polish, of Touchwiz, because it really isn't. It's common sense. Edit after screen capture so that you can do exactly that. And beyond that, multi-window. Key feature on this tablet, all about the multitasking that the Note represents with or without the S Pen integration. This is the multitasking king when it comes to mobile tablets. And that's because not only does it have some of the best hardware in terms of processor, as well as the most and latest refresh of RAM available in the mobile sector, but you're also getting software designed to specifically leverage that. So multi-window, I'll be showing a little bit later. The lock screen, in the course of the 3 updates that Samsung has pushed to this tablet, they have definitely refined the overall performance, but in doing so, they've also taken away some things. And one is the animation, the watercolor animation or water effect when you'd swipe on the lock screen. Obviously, they've removed that because it must present some sort of issue in performance, or they're just doing an overall tweak of the tablet and removing any sort of animations that are really unnecessary and end up just leaving people frustrated by performance lag rather than just being able to enjoy the incredible hardware that the Note 10.1 2014 really does bring together. And I'll reemphasize that because the previous generation Note 10.1 was a great piece of hardware as well, but the fact that it had a low-res screen when compared to the current crop of tablets launching then, like the Nexus 10, current iPad at that time, really made a lot of customers just simply not purchase it because, after all, why would they take a tablet that, even though it had many strong points, fell short on the most basic thing, actual screen resolution. So clearly a lot more going on here than just that improved screen, but they made sure to best everyone. Want to continue to reiterate that. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity on here also best every tablet in the market. So Samsung has made sure that every single piece of tech that has gone in here, in my opinion, is top of the line. And that's really what you're paying for beyond the software that they've also built from the ground up and developed over the course of their Android career to culminate here in this Note product. In terms of what else we have here on the lock screen, you can see actual clock widget options, multiple widgets, shortcuts, personal messages, obviously access to your owner information, wake up in lock screen, action memo, help text. Action memo is something I demoed in my S Pen demo, quite strong in terms of a feature if you're going to look for something with pen integration, really taking it to the next level of integrating it completely digitally, taking the pen and making it part of your mobile experience in a way that even the previous notes just came up short. Nothing really to show with wallpapers. Font control from the actual style to the size, you have access to both, which is nice. And this isn't something new. Again, Samsung's been doing this for a long time, but these are the niceties of having a Samsung tablet. Customization of your drop-down notification bar, control panel basically, which I love. This is one of the reasons I enjoy Touchwiz. I know it's a simple thing. A lot of people probably don't care about it, but I think many users do value it at the end of the day, and that's why they own Samsung products. This is the sort of stuff that not every manufacturer gives us. It's not a make or break feature, but great to have quick access to all of these different features, and of course be able to pick which ones you actually need, because not every user is alike and necessarily needs the stock list we have right now, which you can add to and swipe through essentially. Moving along. Beyond that, we also have accessibility, which is self-explanatory. Nothing groundbreaking here to really point out, but it's still something that Samsung has continued, of course, like all manufacturers, to support, and it's there. It's not missing anything, whether it comes to hearing options, text-to-speech, again, vision-related stuff, color adjustments, negative colors. I mean, these are things that not everybody does. So, interesting stuff. Blocking mode, a great feature. Basically, when you don't want to be disturbed, throw this on and notifications are basically going to be killed off. And I generally have that on when I'm doing reviews for all of you in order to prevent notifications from interrupting our progress. In terms of controls, language and input, self-explanatory, and of course pointer speed. These are all things that I don't really need to show all of you. Voice control, I'm not a big fan of Samsung's voice control. This is one of the few areas you'll hear me say I could live without it, although I'm sure there are users out there that love it and use it on a regular basis. The S Pen, now this is the killer app of the Note lineup, right? Whether you're owning a Note phone like myself or the Note 10.1 tablet, previous generation included, of course, for all of their Note devices, this is what differentiates Samsung's flagship top-of-the-line Android experience from everyone else on the market. Not only do we have a Wacom digitizer with pressure sensitivity that is best in industry, especially mobile OS, we now have pretty strong adaptation with all different Android software, whether we're talking about Photoshop for PDFs or dealing with Sketch Pro, whatever it is, it's now optimized for Android. So we actually can take advantage fully of what Wacom and Samsung have partnered on, and that's part of the maturation of the product, and it'll only continue to get better. But in terms of features here, a little bit limited compared to the Note 3, surprising considering this is in some ways a more expensive device. You could argue, especially if you pick up the LTE version, which is going to come out in the first quarter of 2014 for Verizon. That's going to be an exciting option for those of you looking for a radio enabled device. But you can see we've got turn off pen detection, something pretty straightforward. It can actually extend battery life, but it's really marginal. I don't recommend doing that. The pointer, which is literally the ability to show when you're hovering an actual cursor. The direct pen input, which basically is, again, self-explanatory. Display the handwriting pad on the text input area when the S Pen is detected. Air view, which is essentially hovering and it'll give you information, expand tree menus, things of that nature on the web or in applications. Air command, which is the brand new feature of this latest generation of Note, both the Note 3 and Note 10.1, which will also be showing a little bit later. Very cool feature, something that really just enhances the entire S Note experience. Sound and haptic feedback, again, self-explanatory. Pen detachment options, we have a few in terms of that's for when you actually take out the pen, what it'll trigger, and then the actual sound it'll make. If you haven't noticed already, this tablet loves to make noise out of the box. That's why I'm just going to take the volume down right now, but make sure we don't eliminate media volume because I am going to be doing a little bit of video playback for all of you shortly. Didn't mean to back out there. Let me jump back in. And in terms of the balance here, because I was only at S Pen, motions, these are other ways that Samsung's Touchwiz Ui tries to innovate, whether you tilt to zoom or pan to move an icon or browse an image. Palm motion, you can capture capture a screen by swiping it from right to left. You can also mute by covering the screen. I mean, these are things that do not exist from other manufacturers. And then finally, smart screen, which will detect whether or not you're actually watching the display and keep it on or shut it off accordingly. Smart rotation, in order to follow the orientation of your face. Smart pause, if you look away, it'll pause video. These things all work. They're not gimmicks, and that's where Samsung, again, beyond S Pen, Touchwiz does have its merits. So while it does, it's a bit of a love-hate relationship with Touchwiz, and I think most Samsung users will agree. There are some that just have pure love for it, but I think everyone thinks that it's a compromise that certainly brings a lot more positive things to the experience than the negative things take away from the overall experience, especially when compared to the competition that really doesn't have anything close to this still. But finally, the General tab. Accounts, you have multiple user accounts on here with the latest update, by the way. That was the third firmware update from Samsung. Access to the cloud. You can add an account for personal data management. Link your Dropbox account, which, again, Dropbox service is included with this. Clear Android traditional access to factory reset, your date and time. Accessories, dock sound. Audio output mode. I mean, these are all things. HDMI output, you can select. Day note, and of course the temperature unit, Fahrenheit or Celsius. Application manager, fairly simple to run, and nothing's running now because, again, this is a fresh boot. I just wiped it. The users right there. Battery life. Very quick breakdown, 2 hours and 31 minutes we've been on. We're at 88%. 90% of that going to the screen. Again, as I mentioned before, you're looking at about 8 hours of battery use, somewhere between 7 and 8 if you're really cranking up screen brightness, not all the way, but enough that it's a power hog. And gaming, using anything intensive, streaming video content. Whereas if you have the Wi-Fi shut off, Bluetooth, everything is off in terms of radios, and you're just e-reading on this device in reading mode with brightness somewhere in the mid setting, I would say, somewhere around there, you actually can get close to 9, maybe even 10 hours, depending on how frugal you really are with usage of the juice, I will say. Moving down to power saving mode, this is something you certainly can use in order to try to accomplish that, but I think customizing is what you're going to really want. Now, 32 gigs of total storage here, 5.99 gigs of system memory, 303 megabytes of that has been used. So available space at the end of the day is a 25.63 gigabyte total. So keep that in mind. This is a reason that I would suggest going with the 32 gig version over the 16, because of course available storage capacity is always going to go down. There is an operating system on here, just like a Windows machine, Apple, or of course Android in this case. And even though you have a micro SD card slot for storage expansion, it's always best, in my opinion, to get as much internal storage. Of course, if budget doesn't permit, you go with budget. Beyond that, of course, SD card, as I mentioned before, security, make passwords visible. I'm not going to go over this. Remote controls, device administration. I did also show how to get to developers tools. You want to basically, it's another video entirely. I'm not going to get into that, but that's something that's important if you're actually trying to do more with the tablet than what it allows you to do out of the box. And then finally, about device, which is where you're going to see our current version, dated November 1st, the current build, I should say, the kernel, 4.3 Jelly Bean. That did bring the multiple user account capability, and that's something I covered in the actual Jelly Bean update. Now let's get out of this Touchwiz Ui settings. You've seen the entire underbelly of the Touchwiz environment. Let's get down to business. Let's actually look at the applications, what comes stock. And the good news is there's not a lot of bloat here. There really is more value than bloat. You can see we've got S Note, which, with that said, I'm going to actually pull out the S Pen, which has been redesigned, which is a good thing, folks, because the previous generation, you had to actually line it up and slide it into the pen holder, in the correct orientation, or you wouldn't actually be able to insert it. Now they got rid of the nub that was hanging off the end of the S Pen, so you can just insert it without having to worry about what you're actually doing. Here again, we've got that hand holding, and that's why I'm showing it to you, so that you see what it's like out of the box. They're telling you when you press the pen button while hovering your pen over the screen, the air command features will appear, and that's exactly what they'll do. I mentioned that before. Tree commands or other features will come up when you're actually hovering, and you can see the little hovering point right now. Air command, which is something I will be discussing a little bit later, gives you quick access. You can also prompt it with the press of the button right there on the S Pen itself, if I can bring that into focus. Also, just removing this from the tablet itself prompts it. That's why we have it up right now. You've got options like pen window, which I'll be demonstrating, S Finder, screen write, scrapbooker, and finally action memo. But let's focus on software. So S Note comes, of course, stock, and this is your Samsung note-taking application. Works fairly well. You can select, get creative if you like, what you want your actual book to look like. Oops, I unselected there accidentally. Actual formatting. And you can choose to use Evernote or Samsung. I'm not going to for the purposes of this demo. And you can see we are now in our note-taking application. It has been revamped. There are some changes. Some people like these changes, others not so much. You can see they're letting you know you can choose between S Pen only mode or combo mode, where you can use your finger as well. Keep in mind, palm rejection is a big feature here. You can see my palm is on there, nothing's happening, and I can go ahead and write very naturally, very fluid. And I really have to say that this is where Samsung shines. My penmanship maybe not, but the actual fluidity, as well as the entire experience. This is as close to paper as you're possibly going to get. And you can take this anywhere with you, a little over a pound, great battery life, incredible tablet, but now you've got this feature as well. So if you're a student, mobile professional, someone who needs the ability to take notes on the fly, wants it to be very easily and well managed, which is something I'll be showing here as well. The pressure sensitivity works very, very well. Whether I'm doing a fine line or then I get a little bit thicker, you can see the difference. You don't have to worry about scratching the screen. I'm not telling you should try to stab it at any point. But if I go ahead and just delete everything here, we can of course select all sorts of different utensils to write with, whether we're talking about a pen, pencil, paintbrush, a finer paintbrush, or highlighter. And you can then select the actual size, color, everything here. So really very cool, and something that artists and traditional casual users alike, I think, will really enjoy, because it really does offer an experience that no other tablet does. I've been reviewing now the Tegra Note 7, which is really the only other competitor, in my opinion, especially at its inexpensive price point, to try to not necessarily take on, but give consumers another option, because I'm not comparing them. They're not direct competitors, but it's certainly an interesting offering, to say the least. And you can just see how quick and well this really does work. And that's why it's so popular, folks. This is a great device if you're interested in pen input. It shines. I'm getting out of it, though. So this is one of the great features, S-Note, Samsung's application. It does have other features I didn't dive into, but that's because, quite frankly, I'm covering a lot. I can't cover every single thing. But calendar function, straightforward, nothing really to show you here, but it works well, in my opinion, better than stock calendar. Browser, which is Samsung's own Webkit browser. You can see they're letting you know that they will actually basically store information. I do like the layout of the stock keyboard here. Always have with Samsung. They give you access to basically everything you need. They're intelligent about, or I should say intuitive about, the way the keyboard works, and that's important in any tablet, specifically a really expensive one like this. A little bit of web browsing. Let's try it out. And I am connected over AC. Wi-Fi performance here better than any other tablet I have tested to date. And you will notice occasionally some of that lag that people complain about. Keep in mind, I'm doing this in the stock browser under Touchwiz Ui. If I was running Nova and using something like Opera or Boat browser, this would simply fly. And I want to, continuously remind all of you of that. So while this works well under stock, and you may see a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of lag, which is what gets more credit than the positive things that this tablet brings to the table, you have to be mindful of the fact that, again, that has to do with Touchwiz. And once we step out of the Touchwiz interface, things generally do really well. Let's go ahead and try playing back a video. Speaker quality is fantastic for a tablet in this form factor. Most tablets in this size really don't compete with it.
Black Friday got rowdy at this Brands Mart in West Palm Beach, Florida, over a few deals.
All right, so that's trash news about Black Friday. The mobs, the hordes that everyone was hoping wouldn't end up occurring today, but oh well, it's happening. If you couldn't tell how loud the speakers get on this device, because clearly the microphone is recording my voice, not the speakers that are down here flanking the device on the left and right side, I can assure you, go ahead and test them out in person. You should see this device in person before spending the money, clearly. But the audio performance is solid, a definite improvement over the previous gen that I reviewed, the Note 10.1 from last year. Beyond that, you also have the ability, as you may have noticed with the S Pen with hovering, to actually control scrolling. This is another nice feature. Nothing new, but something some of you may or may not know about. Let's go ahead and browse to another website. Let's go over to ESPN. I thought it would populate already, but it did not. And it did give me a mobile site. Let's go to the actual desktop version. After all, with all this hardware, 2 quad-core processors, even though they're not active at the same time, 3 gigs of RAM, this is practically a computer, even though it's running an A15 ARM-based mobile processor. Of course, no flash here. That can be side-loaded, as I've mentioned before, and used with other browsers like Boat Browser. But things work really well here. There's really not a lot to dislike. I mean, this is one of my favorite tablets for a reason. Samsung, always very good at putting the best hardware together, essentially pushing to the bleeding edge of specifications. They've done that here and really sacrificed very little. I think the biggest argument when it comes to sacrifice is build quality and price point. I'll get to that a little bit later. But you can see web browsing is very good. And the speed is solid. Things work as they should on a tablet at this price point. It's really fast, consistent. I'm not finding myself with any real bugs with this device, especially post 3 over-the-air updates from Samsung, which is incredibly aggressive, especially if you are like myself and know Samsung's history, which many of you do as customers. They aren't necessarily the best to update devices, but at least while this is in its prime, they've been incredibly aggressive because they know it's an incredibly competitive market out there right now, and they want to continue to dominate, and they have been. So hopefully they continue at it with this because software optimization is still necessary here. They have more work to do. This doesn't perform as smoothly as the Note 3 in a lot of tasks, even though the processor and hardware is all really on point. So some of that does have to do with the fact that we're dealing with a much higher resolution screen than the Note 3, but I think it's more to do with just optimizing software and maybe trying to do a lazy man's port here to the Note 10, and that's why performance just isn't quite as good rather than having built a ground-up experience. But shying away, or I should say going off the path here, let's focus on the web browsing. I'm going to try one more website. Let's go over to the New York Times. And this one I'll actually allow to search. I'll even use the ad. And here we're getting mobile. My mistake that it was a Black Friday sale. But again, you can see performance is great. I wouldn't be talking or reviewing this long regarding a piece of hardware if it wasn't one of the best that I've ever used. And it really is, whether we're talking about the screen, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, the lack of NFC, I'm not so pleased with. I at one time had heard reports that there was NFC. Unfortunately, no NFC. But beyond that, being able to use finally a micro USB port down at the bottom in order for, to enable USB host for hard drives, peripherals, jump drives, keyboards if you don't want to use Bluetooth, mice. These were things that really needed to be there that unfortunately you couldn't do with the previous generation with its proprietary charging port and transfer port. Now that we've got that standardized micro USB, we're good to go. Moving along. Next thing I want to talk about, moving away from browsing, is, again, well, I'll just focus on video playback. Let's go over to YouTube. And I say that because YouTube will really give you a good idea of buffering and how well that Wi-Fi performance really does deliver, because I'm nowhere near my router, as usual, with all of these reviews. So somewhat of a stress test, you could say, of the actual Wi-Fi performance. So let's go to YouTube. And the Digital Digest. Well, I'm getting a search rather because I hit it on the wrong line. You may have noticed that, but I'll just go to my channel. And I'm going to stick with their Webkit browser because Chrome is Chrome. It performs well here. We got a mobile version. I could go desktop, but let's go ahead and just play back a video for the sake of playback. We'll take a look at the Tegra Note 7. Why not? Since it's a faux competitor product. Whoa, really skipped ahead too fast there.
The answer already if you've been doing the research. Nothing. So there's nothing else to compare the actual stylus experience. So really good things.
A little bit of a buffer right there. Oh, that was on me.
I'm looking for any other. Impressed with really was just the lack of lag. I mean, look at the app drawer. Is pre-installed there, and look under any mobile OS from any menu.
Okay, so I think that should give more than enough to all of you to really notice that the Wi-Fi performance is stellar. Again, a 2560 by 1600 resolution display really does end up pushing all of this incredibly beast hardware to the limit nonetheless, and that's really, in my opinion, besides the Touchwiz, the few or reasons, justifications, not that I'm certainly trying to make excuses for Samsung, for where the wall does get hit. I believe that all these current A15 chips, while they can perform with high-res screens like this, next generation is probably going to be better. I think that's a fairly safe assumption, as it always is with anything technology related, or hopefully anything in life altogether. But Samsung has done a really solid job here. Jumping back to the onboard software, because that's really where I'm going to be finishing up, and then just reminding all of you of what to be concerned about, the very few things regarding quality control and build quality that for some will be a turnoff, for others a non-starter. So I showed S-Note. We've gone through some web browsing. You've seen web browsing performance as well as video playback. Granted, it was HTML5. Contacts, if you're a Samsung Galaxy owner, you know, this is going to look exactly like what you're already accustomed to. I am not logged in with my Google account, but you can see we've got groups, favorites, and contacts. By the way, I am a big fan of the fact that the buttons are external, not eating into screen real estate. Some people, it's, you know, this is one of those things where you're either for it or against it. In my opinion, I don't feel I accidentally press these when using the tablet in portrait, which, granted, I don't use it in portrait that much. Maybe people that do are going to run into mispresses, accidental presses, but I don't really generally have that problem, so I can't really complain about it. But overall, definitely appreciate the fact that this isn't taking up the lower third here. But in terms of other applications, Chat On, nothing really interesting. Polaris Office, a must-have with this, so a good inclusion. The Scrapbook app is relatively strong, in my opinion, a great way to use the S Pen and this tablet to organize all of your media, whether it's something you find on the web, video, audio, articles, and put it together in one place that you can search and really just have easy access and the capability to share it with all the people that you could possibly want to. I'm not going to take you through that now. I've already done it in another application. Alarm, calendar, which I already showed, email, of course, Gmail, your standard gallery. Nothing really impressive there. The camera application, quite strong. I can tell you that right now. The rear camera is activated. We can switch it simply like that. And that's when it enables Beauty Face, hoping to detect our beautiful face and enhance it to make all of us uglies out there look a little bit prettier. In terms of other features, you can see I just pulled up, well, these were effects. Trying to pull up settings is what I meant to pull up, so that all of you could see this created a little postcard thumbnail of that previous front-facing, or excuse me, the current front-facing image. So we're getting an isolated effect border-framed image, but want to get out of that. So let me actually go back, get rid of that. I didn't mean to back out of the camera application, but wanted to show the all of the settings to you. So basically, flash control right there, on, off, and automatic. You then also have night mode on and off, auto night detection, which will automatically adjust the camera in low light. Fairly simple, but these are added values. Voice controls, And you can see how quickly we're moving in and out of this. And I'm intentionally leaving all these applications open so you guys can see the multitasking capability. And then lastly, bring back the menu. We have video recording mode and then sharing. You can collapse that menu easily. Video capture, right, or video camera mode right here, still capture, and then mode changing right there. And by mode, I mean like all of Samsung's cameras and many other consumer electronics manufacturers, they've got modes for you to switch in and out of. Of course, if you leave it in auto, it'll try to detect your scene. You can go with beauty face that I mentioned before, best photo, which will, like many other manufacturers, take several photos and then try to give you the best of that image. Best face, essentially doing cropping for you to make sure that, you know, someone's blinking, whatever. You merge it until you finally get a photo where everyone looks presentable, or at least everyone's happy with how they look. Sound and shot. You know, these are just little enhancements. These are definitely gimmicks, but I think that the average user is probably going to welcome it as an added value. HDR. Eraser function. You can wipe people out of the background. You know, photo bomber be gone. Panorama mode, sports mode, night mode, and of course we're back to auto. So pretty deep in terms of camera functions, in my opinion. Impressive. Autofocus is relatively solid. The rear 8 megapixel camera is, of course, the performer between the two. The 2 megapixel front-facing camera is better than most laptops, believe it or not, but the reality is it's really just there for obviously video conferencing, web chatting, things of that nature. Moving right along, music application, video player, I recommend using MX. Watch On. Now this is the integrated IR blaster you have at the top of the device that will allow this 10.1 inch tablet, like many of the Galaxy Tabs in past and as well as the current generation, to transform into a remote control. And this is a great feature. It'll basically take on all of the devices in your home theater system. You'll just walk it through it, enter your zip code, so it'll actually know to pull up your provider. You'll select that provider. Let's go with something. Well, these all are Time Warner, at least is accurate for me. And you go to next. Select your TV. I'm not going to go through all of this now. Once you set it up, it'll then also pull all of the content information, allow you to have a visual format to actually get access to it, your favorites, TV guide, timeline, genres, as well as on demand. So very cool. Of course, the Samsung on demand part is you know, another feature altogether, but the whole point is that this is yet another added value to this experience. Keep in mind, as I mentioned before, I am leaving all of these applications open so that it's really clear exactly how much is going on with this tablet. Business Week, that, you know, Bloomberg included in subscription, much like the New York Times. This is part of that media, the media consumption push that Samsung wants you to become part of. They want you to rely on this tablet for everything. You actually can't get rid of these, believe it or not. That is, you know, for many of you, I think will be considered bloatware. For people who actually want to use it, a welcomed addition. The Samsung Hub, as I mentioned before, their own app store or content store, their Samsung apps, gives you access to recommended apps. So that's really the app store for Samsung. Those are really, in my opinion, the biggest forms of bloat on this tablet. But the Hub, they do give you $50 in credit to, so I can't call $50 of free merch truly bloat. The Play Store, Chrome, YouTube, Google Maps, Settings, which we've gone through, Help, which is literally a hand-holding guide, a fantastic thing for first-time tablet owners, especially first-time Android users, and those of you not familiar with Samsung's Galaxy lineup and all of these features I've been going over. Samsung making sure that someone should be able to buy this, open it up, and actually use the tablet without making themselves insane. Go ahead and jump back. And then we've got to basically accommodate the balance of the non-consumption but more productivity, fun applications that have been included. Samsung throwing Twitter on there. their own little Samsung launcher, which includes the Action Memo. I'll be talking about that in a few. Knox for security, a file browser, which is fairly straightforward. It'll give you access, like I mentioned before, to your USB jump drives or hard drives, or of course micro SD card. You've also got the Story Album, Group Play, Samsung Link, the Translator, Video Editor, which is a nice added value, S-Voice, which I mentioned before, not a big fan of, the World Clock, Downloads, self-explanatory, and a calculator. Galaxy Plus, this is where things get great, in my opinion, in terms of value. This is not bloat by any means. Evernote, a TripAdvisor app designed for the tablet itself. Dropbox, since you do get some storage for free with this out of the box. Flipboard, after all, that whole Flipboard experience has been customized for this tablet. And then Sketchbook for Galaxy. Now, they didn't include a Pro version. You still have to purchase that, but this is still a great piece of software to have out of the box when you have something like the S Pen. It's optimized, and you can see, watch the installation speed there, folks. If that's not a testament to the speed of this device, I don't know what is. Can't be faked, and again, nowhere near the router. Not sure if it, I didn't know if we were restarting the app. That's what I assumed was happening. I was going to say I didn't know if it crashed. So I'm not going to get into this now, but clearly this is the Sketch application you want to be using if you're looking for a professional. I mean, this is AutoCAD. You're going up to the next level. And you're going to want to buy the Pro version, clearly, if you really want to use it. But Samsung giving you a taste, which is smart. You need it. I don't believe there was anything else in there. Nope. Google, entire suite, your Gmail, voice search, play the actual Play Music application, Movies application, Hangouts, which has just been revamped and is really a fantastic application, magazines. This is a great reading device, by the way, if you're wondering. It's phenomenal. That 2560 by 1600 resolution is all about having the best experience when it comes to both video as well as still imaging and, of course, reading. Great for photographers. You want to look at an image high res that you could never leverage even on a 1080p display. Here you've got those extra pixels. In terms of other apps, play games, Messenger, books, it's all there. And then Note Screensaver, and that's it, folks. One page, yes, they did collapse and have a launcher there on a couple of them, but that's it. In terms of widgets, you've got some stock as well as custom ones. Assistive light, uses the LED light, of course. Ones for Bloomberg, the New York Times, they're all there. Flipboard, Evernote is there. Your Gmail, there's the New York Times. I mean, so everything is here, and then some. And that's what makes this tablet so unique. It's got incredible hardware, solid software, not too much bloat, and the promise that if Samsung sticks with it, it will continue to dominate and be the best tablet, in my opinion, in the 10.1-inch form factor, especially if you require a stylus. And the best screen right now currently on the market. Accessories, relatively bare. You're looking at pretty much the only one. And as I mentioned, somewhere between $40 and $60 will get this, or at least that's what it should cost. $60 is retail, but I've seen it as low as $40, $45. So that's the price of admission to getting the book cover style case. Other things to point out, long press of the home button is your task manager. As you may have noticed, we've got a lot of things running here, but that's not a problem. Things aren't going to slow down. Quick access to the task manager, to Google, and of course an easy way to just shut everything down, close everything. Quick access right here in the lower left corner to Google Now, Google Voice. And holding down back gets rid of our multi-window. Holding it again brings it back. Instructions on how to use it. This is something I have not yet demoed. Basically, you can just go ahead, drop any of those applications, and just keep going to your heart's content and multitask as much as you like. Split screen, control the actual size of the screen, much like something we would find in Windows 8.1. really nifty. And then, while I'd like to tell you you could just keep going, you can't. That's where, you can just split screen two things, but with a 10.1-inch display like this and high res, things look great. I have to say, this is legitimate multitasking. This list, there it goes, legitimate multitasking that you generally would not necessarily get from any other tablet, especially with stock software out of the box. And then if you want to multitask even more, that's where Air Command comes in. So Air Command is something I haven't actually demoed. I'm going to go ahead and press the button. Up comes our Air Command window or prompt, and we have pen window, which essentially allows us to draw a square anywhere on the screen, and that rectangle will then yield another application we can run in a window similar to the size that we've actually drawn. So here we have yet another web browser, and if I bring it up again, I can go ahead and, let's say I want to put it right here, because after all, context is relevant here. You need to be able to see what you're working on. Let's say I want to put, I'll put the alarm clock there. Yes, not exciting. You can move these around, resize them if it permits. Apparently it's not permitting me right now on that. I'm able to move around the web browser for some, there we go. And you can just move these however you like, set them up, keep going. So just a note, quite a few applications here. When I first reviewed the Note 10.1, very limited on what you could do with multi-window, but now you can see you've got an extensive list between chat on, contacts, email, gallery, internet, music, your file browser, S-Finder, S-Note, Scrapbook, which I mentioned before, their video player, Chrome, Gmail, Hangouts, Maps, YouTube, and trust me, the list is only going to get larger. And also, you may have noticed by hitting that little tab there, you can create, edit. So really, as full-featured as you could possibly want. And then you have that added bonus of Air Command with the pen window for even greater multitasking until you get dizzy, quite frankly. I mean, until the screen is full, this tablet isn't going to really hit the wall. That's the whole point. You're not going to see that happen. But let me go ahead and go home, show you some more Air Command features. Everything's open, so I should be pushing this thing to the brink at this point. S-Finder, fairly straightforward. It's going to give you quick search access to everything on the device. You can see these little floating tabs. These are those pen window applications that I have from before. So they're still available. If I want to bring up the web browser in that little window, there it is. I can also close it out by hitting the X. So really cool. This is software you're not going to find anywhere else. The searching criteria here for this search application from the Air Command, fairly straightforward. You can see time filter, content type filter, and then finally a tag filter. So really easy to find anything you need to on the tablet. If I go ahead and just pull up Air Command again, next thing is screen write, self-explanatory. It's going to allow you to write on the screen and save it, share it, do what you need to. You want to make notes on an article you're reading, share it with someone. Easily done. It's that simple. You can see all of the available options. Easy to save, cancel, change the pen again. This is all part of that value-added experience that S Pen has to offer. And easy, of course, to just get out of. Next, we've got the scrapbook capability. The scrapbooker, as you can see, allows you to draw around, lasso effect, something that's now on the Tegra Note 7 as well. But of course, much more full-featured here, and that's going to allow you to take that content and save it to the device in your Scrapbooker application. So basically, I'm not really saving anything here of significance, but you can see the tablet's doing some work, and this is what it's created. It can actually understand whether you're trying to capture the entire screen or just a section of it based on the size of the circle. You can see this looks like it went for the entire screen. And then you can just save this and it'll actually be logged into your Scrapbooker application. You can then find things based on what you've tagged, titled it as, or the actual content in it that the system sees with that Finder app that I was just demonstrating. Finally, we've got Action Memo, and this is really one of my favorites besides the pen window. You can see you basically turn your handwriting into actual digital content, whether we're talking about contacts, email, web search, just about everything. And this is really cool and easily done. So I've demoed this before. I'll demo it again. Wrote out Central Park. Bring up the lasso effect. It captures it instantly, and then I can either throw this into contacts, email, browser, map, or of course task manager. If I hit browser, you can see it's going to launch either Chrome, in this case, whoops, didn't mean to do that. I lost it all. That's sad. Or did I? It's right there because we still have the application. So basically, doing this again, going to go ahead and hit the web browser. This time I'm going to use the Samsung Webkit browser. These things are still floating. I can kill them off. Or at least I'm trying to. And you can see we got search results. So integrating your handwriting experience into contacts, into search results, mapping, navigation has all become a reality now with this latest version of the S Note. So these are all really important things that define this tablet. Overall, performance is fantastic. As a media consumption tablet, it's a beast. The software included is fantastic. I really don't have a lot of bad things to say. You can see battery life, very solid, even with screen brightness up, maxed out the entire time. Literally an hour video. I think that should be a testament to what I think of this. And lastly, build quality. I mentioned no dead pixels, no backlight bleed really to be mentioned, but build quality is something some of you will care about. The plastic finish on the back, a definite improvement from the previous generation. We now have a matte finish faux leather with a stitch that goes around it. Micro USB port on the bottom, right side of the tablet, micro SD card slot, that speaker grill, the actual S Pen holder, infrared blaster right there, volume rocker, power button, your 3.5mm headphone jack, speaker grill again, and that's pretty much it. Very clean design, very thin. I like everything about it. The Galaxy Note 10.1, definitely, in my opinion, the best tablet right now on the market. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.